Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Andreas Wiseman, as Retta said. I'm the international editor of Deadline. And we have a great panel for you this morning. Rethinking streaming. When are streamers the right partner for you? Which touches on a lot of very pertinent topics in the industry right now. As Retta said, we have Sasha Bühler, immediately on my left here, director of film at Netflix, covering Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Her first two German-language Netflix films as the creative lead there were Blood Red Sky and Army of Thieves, both of which were very successful and ranked worldwide #1 on Netflix. Sasha also brought, famously, All Quiet on the Western Front to Netflix. She was the executive lead on that project for the streamer, and that movie, of course, as we know, went on to win 4 Oscars, garnering 9 nominations, the most ever for a German film. Among movies that she's working on this year have been Far Away, Blood and Gold, and Paradise. So we're going to have plenty to talk to her about. Just to her left here is Axel Kuschewatzki, a producer, a veteran producer who's worked on more than 90 movies, including the Oscar winner El Secreto de sus Ojos, The Secret in Their Eyes, and Oscar nominees Relatos Salvajes, Wild Tales, and Argentina 1985. Since 2019, he's been running his own company, Infinity Hill, which has outposts in London, LA, and Buenos Aires. And their first TV series was a very starry one called Staged, which had Michael Sheen and David Tennant, and a number of great guest stars such as Samuel L. Jackson, Judi Dench, Christoph Waltz, Ewan McGregor, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Cate Blanchett, among many others. On his left is Patrick Waxberger, founder and CEO of Picture Perfect Federation, where he develops and produces content for the US and for international markets. As we know, Patrick previously served as chairman of the Lionsgate Motion Picture Group, joining the company when Lionsgate acquired Summit in 2012. Of course, among his many hits during his tenure there were Wonder, La La Land, Hacksaw Ridge, and huge franchises such as Twilight, Hunger Games, John Wick, Now You See Me. He was more recently a producer on Coda, and as we know, that went on to win the Best Picture Oscar, and he has a bunch of great projects coming up that we're going to talk to him about today. And to Patrick's left, we have Nick Schumacher, who is head of Anonymous Content Independent. And Nick has worked as a manager, producer, executive across film sales, financing. Currently, he's working on a slate of nonfiction and narrative projects from directors and producers such as Victor Kosakowski, Raoul Peck, Alex Gibney, Malgorzata Zumauska, and a number of others. He's also worked in senior positions at UTA and Paris-based sales and production company Memento. So we have a really great panel with plenty of experience. I think maybe we'll start this session thinking a little about some of these vital changes in the last year or two. And I guess the first part of this, rethinking streaming, it almost implies an adjustment or a kind of course correction. Maybe some of you, we all know this as we've thought about this to an extent in the media and the industry as the great Netflix correction, where there's been an adjustment as a result of macroeconomic conditions pressing down on many entertainment companies, and perhaps as a result of subscriber numbers topping out in the domestic market in particular. This has led to a slight change in how streamers operate and how the industry necessarily reacts with them. Maybe we can kick off there, just thinking a little about that landscape in the last year or two, and to what extent it has evolved or changed for these constituents of the industry on our panel. Sasha, maybe you can kick off as the Netflix rep. How has that landscape evolved from your perspective in the last year or two?
Sure. We're available in over 190 countries, and we have 238 million subscribers, very diverse around the world, and we actively produce in 50 countries. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And there are territories that are more saturated than others. EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa is in any case are growth markets for us, for sure. We have not slowed down at all in our investment. What is global for us is that we are becoming more deliberate about what we produce, for sure. That we've learned a lot. You know, we haven't been producing films that long. The EMEA initiative we started in 2019, and the US was just a couple of years behind that for producing films. So we've learned a lot about what our members want, and our member base grows continually, and we try and stay agile and adapt to that. So we're not slowing down by any means in any market. We're just being a little bit more deliberate about what works for our members.
To what extent, we talked a little bit yesterday on the phone about Germany still, where there may have been slight contraction and rethinking in the US, Germany perhaps is still on more of a growth curve. Would you say that's accurate?
As I said, it really, the specifics, you know, we do look at a lot of metrics at Netflix, and the specifics of each market are so complicated. Germany is certainly a growth market. When you look at broadband penetration, all that, we have a lot of room to grow. Reed came over to our office opening and pledged between 21 and 23, $500 million in investment, and we've stuck to that. We've done that. Our plan is to continue to invest more and more and more. We think there's room for it, and it's a very healthy market for us.
So you're not seeing any changes, particularly in the European markets that you cover, in terms of volume or in budgets, which is also something that's that's discussed.
No.
Good. That's good news. That's good news for the biz.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think what's happening with the SVOD platform is that the U.S. market is arriving at a cap, and the question is, where is the expansion for them? And I don't even think it's Western Europe. I think it's really where they have to go now is Africa.
We're there.
And India. And this is where the growth is going to be.
There too, yeah.
I shut up.
You said Africa and Asia? You said
India. You said,
India.
right?
India, yeah.
India.
Yeah.
Has that impacted your thinking and how you put projects together? If you see those...
None whatsoever.
No? You're focusing on what you're doing, and the same with you, Sasha? I mean, are those with those particular markets in mind, Africa and India? We didn't discuss this, but would you come up with Netflix co-productions with those territories, or because you're there, you probably leave them to their own devices?
Never say never. But it hasn't come up yet. No.
Okay. Nick and Patrick, you are well-versed in international sales, as we know. What have you noticed in the way of streamers, in terms of what our question here being rethinking streaming, how they approach the market differently in terms of acquisitions, perhaps? It certainly feels like there are a bunch less splashy sales deals, acquisitions at the big markets that we attend. Have you noticed the change there?
Patrick, please.
Both of you. I mean, for both of you.
So I think there is more flexibility than there was in the past, whereby you can see now streamers buying certain windows, independent of the territories. You can see, I'm sure, our friends at Netflix in France deciding, okay, I'm going to buy a first pay window or first and second pay window. You have certain streamers who are willing to go and have a theatrical release. Look at Apple, what they're doing domestically, with the 45 days windows, going with their big movies through Sony or Universal. Universal. So I think there is, and also buying limited territories. You have Amazon that in recent market going and buying on specific movies certain territories, and that's it, which is something that did not happen 4 years ago.
I mean, you kind of said everything I was going to say, but I would add one thing to at least try to sound acute and intelligent, which is we can't look at it as monolithic, streamers in terms of what they do. And I think there was a period of time where it was like every US producer thought, my film's going to a streamer. And I kind of feel like that's going away, which is a healthy thing. The other thing to add is the kind of correspondence we're seeing in the UK market specifically between independent theatrical, and the streamers in terms of acquisitions is really helpful. It's supporting the independent market. And without it, I don't know kind of where it would be to a certain degree. So,
If I can add to that as well, we try and be very open to new deal terms. We've just closed a big deal with Constantine Film in Germany for their Pay One window, and that's also helping to finance their films, practically their theatrical films. And we probably release, on average, 30 films a year theatrically. And so I think it's a matter of constantly reassessing where we stand and what the best way is to be supportive members of the communities, of the creative communities locally.
How much flexibility is there for Netflix with the window in Germany? What's the deal with Constantine? Is it what kind of deal is that?
We're going to be getting Pay One 10 to 12 months after the theatrical release, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, how many?
10 to 12 months.
10 to 12 months, yeah.
Axel, how are you finding the market right now? You're putting together a bunch of independent movies. How are you working with streamers today, maybe differently to how you were a few years ago? Maybe we can talk also a bit about your Spanish language projects, because you're very well known for a number of these great Spanish language projects. Maybe you can tell us about which streamers are particularly
That's a long question.
It's a long
so
question.
Like,
Let's
go step by step.
We'll go step by step.
Yeah.
How are you finding it right now out there in terms of working with streamers? And then we can come back to the Spanish
Well,
language.
I think it's highly flexible now. We are coming off of a time where it seemed to be just one single way to put things together. And as you said before, I mean, it's an ever-changing landscape, which is actually a good thing. Bad thing about that is there's no one single model, so it's like your brain melts away with each film trying to, understand exactly what are you putting together. But I like this very much. I love the notion of the theatrical experience coming back, but not because I'm against the streaming concept. It's that having a lot of options, means that each film has the chance to find its own identity, its own, roadmap. We basically think of films think of things in a film by film basis. There's not such thing as one single model.
Pretty exciting time to be a producer, right? Yes, there has all the opportunities of entrepreneurship in terms of the flexibility of how you put something together, but theatrical has also come back in a more positive way. So you have that great option and bedrock, and creatives are going to be happy. So pretty.
Yeah. At the same time, the theatrical experience, it's not the same as it was some years ago, and something has to be theatrically worthy. It's not that you can, put whatever you do on a theater, because P&A it's still the most expensive. It's becoming the most expensive part of the whole thing. But it's like we don't need to be orthodox. We need to be flexible and adaptive. Listen, I come from Argentina. In 2001, we had 5 presidents in 2 weeks. So I know I have to adapt.
Yeah, you spoke there as well about theatrical not being what it was. Spain has been a market that has faced a number of theatrical challenges. Yeah. What's the receptivity, would you say, to the streamers in Spain right now when you're putting a project together, a Spanish language project together? Are there go-to streamers for you? Maybe we can talk a little about Spain and that market.
Well, because I'm always trying to have a theatrical release, that's part of the conversation from scratch with each streamer. And I've seen the changes in the last, I would say, year and a half, where they went from no theatrical release at all to, well, there is a way to, we are, creating a pre-awareness of the film before it, hits the platform, but also it's becoming a neat source of income. It's funny that after years of not having commercial breaks or theatrical release, we're going back to that. I mean, it's like the streamers are about to create television anytime soon.
We know Netflix and Amazon are very active in Spain. Are there other streamers that are kind of emerging in Spain?
Well, you have the
Amazon.
homegrown.
Amazon.
Well, Amazon, but they are doing like, I think, 5 to 6 movies a year. But, you know, you have the local players, which are huge, like Antena 3, Televisión Española, which is a broadcaster, big broadcaster there. Yeah, you have a lot of local players, and you have the same in Latin America. I mean, it's happening a lot. And there's also a big player that most people it's not aware of, which is ViX, which is the Televisa company that is basically, you know, it aims for the Mexican and Latin and Latinx audiences in the US, which is a huge market.
ViX?
ViX.
ViX.
It's huge.
Based in...
That's based in between Mexico and LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a platform for that in Spain as well?
Nope.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Could be an opportunity. We're thinking a little about foreign language here. Sasha, you had a huge success recently with All Quiet on the Western Front. Maybe we can talk about that a tiny bit. What were the keys to that success, would you say, and how do you replicate it?
That's a good question. No problem whatsoever. The project was actually first brought to me in English, English language script. It was first written in English with an English-speaking director who didn't speak any German. And I passed on it because it was a year after 1917 came out, and just thought we don't need to do this again. And I didn't know what would be so compelling about it on Netflix to tell that story. Although the script was quite strong, that that opening sequence, the journey of the uniform was already in it. Brilliant aspects to the script, but it wasn't until Malte Grunert and Edward Berger were brought on, and it wasn't just the German language, but it was also just their very German take on it, was really telling the loser's side, which you have not seen, telling that unique German perspective of a country that does not celebrate its war heroes. And it was that really unique perspective and very, very clear vision that I thought, okay, now that is something special. That's something different. And it's, we're always asking ourselves in local territories, what is local German? What is local Italian? What do people want to see? It doesn't mean to me necessarily it has to be 100% in the language. It helps. I mean, Germans do like watching things in German, but they're also a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot, skeptical of German productions. And I think part of that is because they haven't been able to produce at scale before. They're serving a smaller audience. It didn't make sense to go beyond a certain budget, a certain scale of production. And we found that it's really, really important to be best in class in every single department. That's people love to jump on Netflix as well. We'll get skewered if we're not. We even in Blood Red Sky, a small German horror film, we had Coulier Creatures who did the prosthetics on Harry Potter working on it. We had award-winning camera, award-winning music, all of that kind of thing. So what we try and do, my job I see as supporting and in the best case, inspiring and enabling people to do their best work. And in a way that you haven't been able to see in these smaller territories before. So that's what we'll keep trying to do. I hope it works again.
With that production, I mean, war films don't always do great in Germany either. So when you set out, did you anticipate that it might be a movie that had more success overseas, or were you thinking global, or were you thinking?
Well, that's where the German perspective came in. I think in English it would not have done well in Germany, but from the beginning it was clear we need to make it a must-see program, something that is important to the Germans, something that is really, that they claim as their own. And I think we managed that. It was very, very successful in Germany, and despite Germans not loving war films, they embraced it, they were very proud of it. And that perspective that I think it wasn't even clear to a lot of Germans, that we don't, all other countries have Veterans Day. We don't celebrate Veterans Day. We don't celebrate our war heroes. It was a learning process for everybody to understand how unique the situation is and an owning up of it.
there's many questions about that particular production. We could almost be a case study on its own. But I guess the streamers have also been, because that had such cut through in awards season, the streamers have been pretty important in propelling a lot of these foreign language movies into the awards season, right? I mean, I suppose you've all probably experienced that, but I guess that's just going to continue as we go along.
I hope so.
Maybe the other panelists can talk a little about some of their recent experiences of working with a streamer. I was also wondering, do we feel any particular marked differences between working with certain streamers? I mean, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Max, being the biggest ones.
I think we should also add in Mubi because of their support of the art house. They may not be making $20, $30 million films, but they've become very additive to that ecosystem. So,
have you worked with them yet?
No.
Anyone on stage? Not yet. But certainly a very interesting company, as you say, super supportive of the art house, and obviously brought the Match Factory within their house in the last couple of years. Michael's here and will be, I think, I don't know if he's are you on a panel later, Michael? No, not on a panel, but he's here. And yeah, certainly a very interesting model, getting more into production. Anyone else on the panel want to talk about?
I just wanted to add, on the nonfiction side, while there's been a bit of a retraction in terms of certain types of content, the streamers have been able to propel shows that were super, super difficult to make a couple years ago. I don't know if they greenlighted today, but we had a show, Immigration Nation, that Charles Schwartz and Christina Clouseau did, and the day before it was released, we got front page coverage in the New York Times, thanks to Netflix and thanks to Trump trying to shut down the show. So for nonfiction filmmakers, in the right kind of setting with My Octopus Teacher, which I worked on, it's an amazing thing to see when one of those hits, because the voice just reaches so far. At the same time, you look at Moonage Daydream, you look at Stop Making Sense, and that theatrical experience, to be able to pair it up with Pay One Later, is really great for films. So,
I think that applies also to foreign language, local language product. And you were asking about, we were talking about this a little bit before about the award season and stuff. I mean, you need tons of money actually to create a standout. As you mentioned before, you need something that has to be interesting enough, not only for your local audience, but also have the chance to travel. But you need funding. You need money to get PR and screening places all around the world. It's a marathon. You went through that last year. I mean, people idealize Oscar season as some glamour thing, but it's actually one of the hardest things ever.
It's also, it's a slog, and getting that cut through is difficult because of the amount of volume, right? I mean, you talked about a few of the hits there, but the sheer volume is immense. How as producers do you try to make sure your project gets the attention and gets that cut through? And can you work with streamers to try to get positioning?
I think it really depends on the project. Okay, so you start developing a project because you like it, because you believe it should be either a movie or a TV. Let's talk about movies, a movie. And then when you start putting the pieces together, you kind of really figure out of saying, do I have a theatrical movie? Do I have a movie that is going to be better off going to a streamer on a global way? Or maybe not on a global way. Maybe you say, you know what, I've been supporting all those independent distributors forever. I'm going to go to the independent market internationally and sell territory by territory. So I do get an upside if my movie works. And then I will go to a streamer domestic. Or, the problem that we have in the United States is that the model is still, except for a few great smaller, independent distributors, the P&A is pretty expensive, right? until the model change, until there is more domestic distributors that there is theatrical distributor that there is today. So I think it's on a case by case.
And though that pool is so small, as we mentioned yesterday on the call,
There might be a point in time where streamers, maybe Netflix or maybe others, will decide of saying, you know what, okay, we have those big movies that we're doing, and we're going through studios to release them, like Apple is doing with Napoleon, through Sony, 45 days window, low distribution fee, of saying, you know what, we're gonna go and set up our own distribution company. It's possible. I can see that happening. I don't know if all of them are gonna do it, or if some of them are gonna do it, for multiple reasons. Number one, release their big movies themselves, more control, having an upside in days where the economy is kind of different. You're not taking that many shots as you used to for streamers. And two, probably to go and get a market that doesn't exist anymore, which is the award movies that they want to create themselves. And for that, they probably need to set up their own domestic distribution company. Maybe I'm dreaming.
I think you're probably right, but I think the other, when you construct a film, not everything's going to be for a streamer, and there is a legitimate fear, just given the sheer volume and how things go on platforms, that the film doesn't exist in a cultural lexicon, 2 to 3 weeks after release, and I have that fear to a certain degree, and I don't know what the solve is with streamers to that regard, again, because it's such a volume business, based on subscription. But I think that's where you really have to analyze what's, as Patrick, I think as everybody's mentioned, what's the best way to construct a film? Is it best to go straight to the streamer? Is it best to kind of, Tom Quinn and I did Gunda together, Koskovsky's film. Like, that would disappear, frankly, on any streamer, with the exception of probably Mubi. And to be able to kind of keep making that type of cinema, we need the independent sector to succeed. And so it's nice to see it coexist a little bit better for now, with split rights deals
And there is, so that speaks to this question that, I think is often in the media, and we do talk about how many of these streamer projects have genuine cultural cut-through. I mean, how do you go about, Sasha, trying to ensure that as many of these projects as possible get properly seen, have their cut-through, find their lane when there's just such a sheer volume on your platform?
Well, I completely agree with what you say, and I think we can harmoniously coexist and help each other. And often, projects that are brought to me, I'll say, I think this should be theatrical. I think that you should put that in theaters, and we'd be happy to look at Pay One, but it would get lost on the service. And so you look at, high concept works very well for us. We know that a little louder, a quiet art house movie is not going to have great chances on Netflix. It's not probably the best. Never say never, but it's probably not the best platform for it. So we look for what can be very impactful, what will grab people. And our algorithm is extremely democratic. It comes out there like everything else. There's not a multiple $1 million P&A campaign behind it, and either you click on it or you don't. And if you don't, it disappears to the ether. And if you do, then it keeps coming up and catches fire. And we have so many examples of films that had no known cast in them, no known director, foreign language either. Like, think about The Platform, no marketing support, PR support, anything, and they just catch fire. Squid Game, we didn't. These are things that are really, really happy, great surprises, but they were powerful and they grabbed people at the right moment. So it's about having that very, very clear vision and some kind of and a clear concept which can grab people. Understandable, high concept, and then people will watch it.
Was that a surprise, the success of Squid Game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
Around the world, yeah.
And how about Money Heist? Was that a surprise too?
You know what? I don't know what they were
The next 10
expecting
minutes.
for it, but I think that for all of us, the way foreign language programs have traveled around the world has been a really happy surprise. And when I started, I was covering Northern Europe, so I also had France and the Nordics, which are traditionally export countries also for storytelling and for talent and all of that. And then I had Germany, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. Like, no one's going to watch these things. And they did. Like I was saying, the first one was Blood Red Sky, and that was vampires on a plane. That's it. That's the concept. Although the director kept on saying it's a drama about a mother and her son. I was like, nope, that's not what we're going with. That's part of it. So I think for everyone, it's been a really great surprise that around the world, people, in fact, actively seek out foreign language, foreign content. And I think since 2020, we've seen that more people watch things subbed and dubbed on Netflix than they do in original. Is huge.
So anytime soon, the U.S. will accept the metric system. Exactly.
Go loud or go theatrical. So it's interesting, that thing about quiet movies, as you say. That I'm just trying to think of like quiet movies I might have watched on a streamer, but yet often genre or something that kind of grabs you, as you say. There was that Italian one years ago. Was it Sulla Mia Pelle? Is that what it was called? Was it called Under My Skin? A great Italian one. That wasn't like a loud one, but I always think that was one of the best foreign language, independent kind of dramas I saw on Netflix. It was Netflix acquisition, but years ago.
And I'm not saying everything needs to, explode and everybody needs to be naked. I mean, it doesn't have to be loud like that. And we do want to tell excellent stories. We want to tell them well, and that means having depth. But there are films that we, as I said, we're learning. We're learning all the time. We can see what works every day. I look at everything that comes out on the world and can see not only what's working where, when people are dropping out at what point, and we're just trying to be better and more deliberate in how we produce.
I just wanted to ask Patrick, because obviously you had huge success with Coda, which started independent and then went streamer to Apple, because you have Sean Hedder's follow-up project to that. You also have a very interesting project with George Clooney, and I know that you also recently have been in France setting up a project during the strikes there. These three cool projects, for example, are you going streamer? Are you going non-streamer? Why?
Okay, well, let's start with the easy one. So we basically had a series that we did 5 seasons, 50 episodes, called Le Bureau des Légendes. So we are doing now a US version of it called The Department. It started with Paramount Network, and it ended up at Showtime with Studio 101, David Glass's company, and Smokehouse, George Clooney, who is directing the pilot for sure, and maybe more. The plan there is to really create a franchise in the espionage world, the same way as it has been done for Western drama, family drama, and doing some spin-off. So that's an interesting proposal for us.
And that will be on Showtime and Paramount Plus internationally, or
it's going to be on
Sky?
Yeah, on their platform worldwide.
Yeah, I can't remember these days if that's a partnership with Sky or if it's Paramount Plus. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that's where it started. But it changed, and they brought that additional companies into the project for reason that they have, And in terms of the Sean Heder next project called The Impossible, which is based on an amazing book, we're doing this movie in partnership with the Black Label, Molly Smith. We have an amazing screenplay, which was just delivered before the strike. We are going to start casting now that we can. And it's a really interesting time for us to decide which way we're going to go. Part of us, we want to see it as a theatrical experience. On the other hand, there is the option of making a deal with a platform for the world. And
You have those options offers on the table, do you?
I'm sorry?
You have those offers on the table now?
Yes. And we are, what we are doing on this one is that we are basically financing the process. In other words, we don't have to put all the pieces together to basically say we're greenlighting the movie. This is kind of unique, exceptional, maybe risky, maybe not. And we're going to make a decision, I guess, fairly soon.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can see Retta there, which might mean we have to ask a few questions perhaps of the audience in case there are. We didn't get to the strike, but we might, if there aren't many questions, we can come back to the how the strike is impacting things. But there's one question here.
Hello, my name is Philip. I'm a Swiss filmmaker. And I guess it's a question for Sasha. I have my latest feature on Netflix UK right now, which is great. So since we all learn as we go as content producers, and since you have basically all the data, how the film goes, how well it goes, I guess my question is, how do we connect to your brain pool as filmmakers? Because the streamers are very restrictive in numbers. So when you get to the end of a license deal, how do we, get the numbers, how well it went? So what options do we have there as filmmakers?
To get information on how your film is performing on
Yeah,
Netflix?
exactly. Because to move forward, to learn, to go to the next project, and we talked about this in the last panel. It would be really like a valuable information.
And you're saying it's a licensed film?
Yeah.
Well, for original films, we give quite a bit of information, in fact, to our filmmakers. But for licensed, at the moment, we do not do that. I'm sorry, I can't tell you what the plans are. I don't know for the future what information we can give out.
As a result of the strike, I mean, there's obviously been talk of more transparency. Has that kind of edict filtered down at all within Netflix that you need to start preparing more data for your filmmakers?
Well, we're constantly discussing. I mean, we want to serve our filmmakers. We want people to want to work with us, and also you can learn out of it, like you said. So it's a constant discussion of what information we can share and which is better not shared yet, because we're learning that as well. In the 4 years I've been there, it's changed so much how we look at films, how we analyze them, how we value them, and that comes with being agile and looking at each market and how we adapt to our new member base and what's coming up.
Don't you think it's going to have to be an agreement between all the streamers of figuring out together and agreeing together, which might be very difficult, of giving transparency?
Yeah, I'm not the best person to speak on
Me neither.
our strategy for the strike negotiations. I can't say that. Yeah.
One more question here, and there's another one over there.
Hi, I'm Mariska. I'm a producer and founder of a female-driven film production company in Zurich. And I have a question for Sascha Bühler. And my question would be, how does Netflix look at Switzerland at the moment? And what are your next steps and strategies for Switzerland?
Well, we're here.
Yeah,
my colleague Lars Wiebe is also here, who's actually Swiss. And yeah, we're constantly looking for the best programming. We're looking in Switzerland, Austria, and Germany for programming which will work, first of all, throughout the entire DACH, German-speaking region, and then as a plus for the best of the world. So we're here, we're available, we're looking for stuff. We'd love to work with you.
There was a question here. Is there a mic?
Hello. My question is also for Sasha. I was
The
wondering.
only streamer on the panel.
You said for Netflix that you want movies that will grab people in order to, for them to work. And I was wondering, in terms of Netflix productions versus theatrical productions, what are movies that you target or series, or like what's your goal when you have a Netflix production?
I actually wanted to correct what I said as you were speaking. My Octopus Teacher is one of my all-time favorite films, and it's not a loud film by any means, but it's incredibly poignant. It is so moving. So it doesn't have to be explosions or something like that. High concept is wonderful, but we want excellence in storytelling, excellence in filmmaking. I think that's the key. It's difficult for me to say. I can say high concept works very well on Netflix. I can say there are certain genres that work very well on Netflix, but we're open. I don't want to close the door on something because you go, oh, maybe this isn't loud enough, or if it's great storytelling and we really believe that it will be incredibly impactful, meaning a lot of people will want to watch it and watch it to the end because it's so well told, first in the local market and then around the world, then it's good.
Thank you.
I think on that note, we may have to wrap it. I don't see any hands up either, but it's been a really interesting, illuminating talk. Thank you all to the panelists for being with us today, and thank you for listening.